How's it going there, everybody? It's Mr. Zen over here bringing you guys a brand new Hunter Hunter chapter discussion. Yes, folks, after a whole spanking year, we finally get a brand new Hunter Hunter chapter discussion, folks. So, let's do this properly, folks. Suit up, get your comb, get a comb and get everything nice and suited, because of the fact that Togashi's work is a very special work that we all have to agree with, right, folks? I'm not the only one that should be thinking about that. But needless to say, guys, chapter 361, named Withdraw, folks, is literally Kurapika versus Sairid. And we learn more about Nen Beast, and we learn about the princes themselves. There is so much going on in this chapter, folks. After a whole year that's been going on, we just see that Togashi's work is still improving every single time. It did not diminish, folks. The chapter itself was bombarded with lots of information. Yes, folks, but the information is still very crucial because of the fact that the way that Kurapika is set in a predicament, in a sense that he literally has to think of ways that he can't exploit himself to the point that he can become vulnerable, but yet to the point that he's actually coming up with new tricks involved whenever he's faced with a new predicament. It's very interesting to see how Kurapika's actual intelligence is always shown in every single arc, folks. And Kurapika, grade A. Love the way Togashi does Kurapika's character all the time. But let's say that, guys, Kurapika versus Sairid was very interesting to look at because of the fact that Kurapika, needless to say, didn't really necessarily have to use a lot of his Nen abilities, but instead we actually get introduced to a new type of Nen ability that Kurapika is actually shown, and that is he can actually copy a Nen ability of another person's. It's very interesting because we never noticed that Kurapika can actually do that, but Kurapika has this because of the fact that he uses this as like a last resort method in order to amplify his own strength while using Emperor Time. And that was very interesting too, because the fact that it seems that Kurapika's abilities is very similar to Krollo's in a sense, because the fact that like Krollos himself, he can actually not necessarily copy and actually steal the abilities as well, but instead Kurapika is more like in lighter terms, like his is more like a limited time edition, only buy now for $35.99 and you can actually use this guy's Nen ability. I feel like that's what Kurapika's actually like actual use of his Nen ability. But jokes aside though, Kurapika himself versus Sairid was very, very interesting to see that. And also the Nen Beast that was controlling actual Sairid was very interesting as well, because of the fact that this Nen Beast itself was abiding by some kind of contract, because as Sairid actually said in the chapter itself, that until he said the word free, that he is actually free, then the Nen Beast was actually able to control the person's whole body. And that in a sense was very interesting, because the fact that it's like a taboo in a sense for a lot of the other people that are around them. And by that I mean a taboo is because of the fact that they actually have to be very careful as to who and where they're talking to. They can't just mindlessly just talk to anybody. And it seems that Sairid actually had that encounter, and he failed at that. And needless to say, it explains why the Kakin country was actually able to take Sairid, because to me it seemed more as the fact that Sairid basically failed the whole entire mission. Now that he was taken out of commission, or either that it's just basically Kurapika's way of saying like, oh well, I guess it's down to 2 bodyguards. Yes, folks, it's now down to Kurapika, like 11 bodyguards, all the way down to 2 folks, which is very hilarious. Kurapika and Bill. That was very interesting, folks. Very, very interesting. 2 bodyguards. That means Kurapika's gonna have to basically do the majority of the work, folks. Praying to God for Kurapika, guys, because I hope he's not dying this arc. Holy snap, folks. He's in a really tough predicament there. But back again to Sairid, folks. Sairid's ability was actually showcased in the way he kind of uses his own abilities, and that is he can control actual living creatures like small bugs. And I believe that the biggest animal you can actually control is the size of a mouse. It's not a lot, but it's more like surveillance kind of type, like a type of Nen ability that kind of benefits them. And to me, Kurapika taking that Nen ability benefits him, because he needs to have surveillance around this whole entire time. Like I said, he's in a predicament that he needs to actually start using his whip. It's very interesting. Like I said, I'm loving the way Togashi's actually going with this art, folks. Mwah! It's beautiful. Just beautiful, folks. Oh! But yes, folks, it's very interesting Sairid's ability, and it's funny also at the same time because the fact that I actually thought that Sairid was actually one of the ways that I believe Bill was actually talking to Kurapika of their escape plans or options. But no, it apparently was some other person that could transform into a bow and they can actually escape, which I thought was very interesting. But I think he died. Poor guy. Poor freaking guy, folks. Woo, damn. Oh, damn. Very interesting. Very, very interesting, folks. So much stuff is going on in this chapter. It's like, oh, damn. Holy damn. But we gotta move on, folks. We gotta move on with Bill and Kurapika. You know, we gotta realize these characters is very important with their conversation because of the fact that what Bill has said in the chapter. And that is because, remember how I specifically said that, you know, that, I think his name was Carton or Carlton, one of the two. I can't believe that. He's very irrelevant now that he's dead. But he said Pariston or beyond where there was another actual escape plan, which I thought to myself was, whoa, what is going on here? I want to know is why does Bill want to use them as their escape plan, or what's his connection to them? Unless I might have missed something, but it's very interesting to see that they have to use this convict or prisoner that's on board with them as their escape plan. Like, what can benefit from them? Unless he means that they can actually be a bodyguard. Is that what Bill is meaning? That their escape plan is basically having them as their last resort? You know, but that to me it's like, you know, even if it's one person, that's still a lot to carry on. And even Pariston and beyond having that kind of responsibility on a person, it's still a lot to consider because the fact, you know, you're facing off against all the other princesses and NPCs. You know, it's like it's too much for one person. It's not that they can't handle it and they're weak. It's necessarily because the fact that it's too many to take on. Unless these characters have an ability that they can multiply, then yes, that would make sense. But like I said, to me it just seems like, whoa, you know, like you're relying on these characters too much. You know, they need to rely on themselves first instead of having them. That's my honest opinion as to how I would see that situation unfold. And that's what Kurapika is doing. He's trying to take care of the situation. But Bill in the chapter seemed more as the fact that he was actually more like, just like, no, we gotta do this other plan. No, the safety of Prince Wobble is our first priority. No. That's not what Kurapika is doing. He's actually doing it and benefiting Prince Wobble's safety, but by his own measures, taking care of the situation and trying to handle it in the quickest possible way. And that's what like I said, I love Kurapika's actual involvement in this arc. It's very interesting seeing as to how far he goes. But we gotta move on, guys. We gotta move on. Interesting with Prince Wobble, now that I mentioned him. You know what's funny is the fact that I was thinking that maybe it might have been Prince Wobble that actually was the one killing his own members. You know, when I was, you know, back like last year when I was reading it. But what made it interesting is the fact that in this chapter, it seems that a lot of these characters, these Nen beasts they're subconsciously actually doing it. They're not consciously actually telling their Nen beasts, oh, can you go attack this guy because I want him dead. No, it's not how it works. These Nen beasts are actually just kind of like animal instincts. They're protecting their hosts because if they feel a threat, they will attack. And that's what I felt that with Prince Wobble's actual Nen ability. In case it hasn't shown, it seems that even though it wasn't him, we learn now who the real culprit that was involved in this chapter, and that was Momose. Pardon me if I mispronounce it, but Momose was the culprit, because in the chapter we noticed that she was in her room. She said, oh, I feel fatigued and tired. And to me, it hit me like a train. Whoa, because she had like this giant rat looking creature that was behind her, and I was thinking, wow, like this character just seems so sweet and innocent, man. From what I see so far, maybe she's like some bloodthirsty killer from we don't know, but like Momose, wow, we gotta watch out for these. Like I'm telling you, like all these princes and princesses, we have to watch out for, because the fact, you know, they don't know what they're necessarily doing at the same time. Like I said, these Nen beasts. Like it's interesting seeing that the Nen beasts themselves is becoming a very prominent figure in the world of Hunter x Hunter, and that's what I'm kind of hoping that maybe Golden might get a Nen Beast. That would be pretty interesting if there's other ways that they can actually get Nen Beasts. To my honest opinion, that would be pretty cool in a sense to see that other characters get Nen Beasts and not just these princesses, because Nen Beast seems kind of like the only way that maybe Gon can actually have something. Just something to keep in mind, folks, you know, before I digress. But that'd be pretty, but like back at Mammal is a culprit, so we gotta watch out for her, folks. But last thing that I do want to talk about, folks, before I end this video, and that is Halkenberg speaks with Nasubi, the king Nasubi himself. And that, in a sense, was very interesting, folks, because of the fact that Halkenberg is actually trying to get out of this ceremony, this bloodshed ceremony, as he puts it. And it's very interesting because of the fact that you're looking at this and you're thinking, why does he want to get out now? It's too late to get out. It's more or less to say, like, maybe he has an ulterior motive. Because when I see a person saying, I want to get out, when it's already, you're already on the boat. It's like there's no other way. So to me, it seems like there's an ulterior motive. Maybe Halkenberg actually just literally wants to kill Nasubi himself and say, you know, let me just take the throne and just get and end this bloodshed itself by me taking your head. That maybe might be what Halkenberg is actually thinking from my point of view. Or if not that, he really just wants to leave and he wants another way of doing this ceremony. He wants to speak with Nasubi to actually talk about how they can actually do this ceremony in a more diplomatic kind of way, instead of kind of having this, like, you know, having everybody's hands get a little too dirty. And honestly, either way it goes, to me it seems that Halkenberg might actually die. Even though we saw his Nen Beast was actually like this giant owl, cyclops looking thing right behind him, which looked very cool and very just like, what's that perfect word to describe it? Very ominous. There you go. That's the right word I'm looking for. Very ominous right behind him. And the thing about it too is that a lot of these Nen Beasts, we don't know what kind of powers they kind of possess as well. So I'm kind of hoping, what does this Nen Beast that Halkenberg possesses? Is it like a physical type that's just pure gruff and bronze, a flight ability, a teleportation? Maybe he can actually you could be like a face too, like maybe the Nen Beast will actually protect Halkenberg by making him like a face through kind of thing going on. Like I said, it's very interesting to see how that would actually go with Halkenberg versus Nasubi, because of the fact that, like I said, there's gonna be bloodshed. Like I said, it's way too late to actually get out now. And for me, seeing how Halkenberg actually try to get out of this, it's just like a death flag. In all due respect, poor guy. But let me know down in the comments below as to what are you guys' thoughts on chapter 361, folks. This chapter, utterly amazing, folks. Amazing. So amazing. Yes, folks, you can tell I'm a Hunter x Hunter fan. But yeah, but like I said, let me know down in the comments. And also, what are you guys' thoughts on Halkenberg's actual, you know, what's his role now going to be? Is he going to die, or is he going to try to stage a coup? Or mutiny, as what they call it? Do you guys think there's gonna be a mutiny going on there, or do you guys think that then Nasubi's might actually just kill him just straight up right in front of everyone, just to set an example, saying if you guys want to leave, by all means you can leave, but having your head chopped off as a showing means that, you know, this ceremony will continue on. And also, let me know down in the comments as well as to what are you guys' thoughts of Kurapika's that copying ability that he has, which is very interesting to see that with Kurapika. I didn't really think he would actually have that. It was kind of like a, whoa, you know, Togashi, you're making Kurapika very powerful in a way that, like, Kurapika's ready to fight any of the spiders themselves. Very interesting, like I said. But as always, guys, let me know down in the comments as to what you guys also thoughts on Nen Beast itself. That's my last thing that I want to tell you guys. And as always, guys, if you guys enjoy my content, don't forget to give a like, comment, share, and subscribe for more Hunter x Hunter chapter discussions. And as always, hope to see you guys again in the next video, but peace out, folks.